Well, here we are today talking with Brandon Kim from New York State, USA. Now, Brandon is the author of this wonderful book. You can see it there. It's The Medium Discourse, Red Cloud's Inner Teachings, of Volume 1 and 2. And the foreword is by Brian E. Hurst. Welcome, Brandon. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for giving us information about your book.
Thank you for having me.
What can you tell us then about the main subject of this book, which is a weighty tome? The main subject being the medium Estelle Roberts and her guides. What can you tell us about Estelle?
Well, first of all, I definitely would like to thank you and Margaret for having me. And the weighty book, I can tell you, probably makes a good paperweight if you don't get around to reading it yet. It is 2 volumes. But yeah, I mean, again, it's not a book about Estelle Roberts, her life per se, but you really can't talk about the book without talking about, Estelle's mediumship in some capacity. If you don't know who Estelle Roberts is, that's criminal. Just kidding, but it should be criminal. I think Estelle Roberts, to me, is really one of the most beloved mediums of all time. And I'm really happy to say that. It's because she was so strong in all of her modalities. She had strong gifts across the board, with, psychic, trance, clearly trance, mental mediumship, physical healing. She was able to really do the good work for spirit. I believe because she really lived a pretty humble life. She didn't grow up with a lot of wealth, and you guys know, mediums know very well that if you can be a pure channel for spirit, then that really allows spirit to manifest so much through you. And to a lot of people on the outside, those manifestations feel like miracles. But that's just because you're a pure spirit. She, a story that I do like to tell people is her psychometry skills. She was able to hold a closed envelope up to her forehead and play around with her daughters, and was able to, read what was in the contents. And it was 9 out of 10 times she would get it right. And for the one rare time that she didn't get right, her daughters would make fun of her. But that's kind of how strong her gift was, that you could actually have fun when she was incorrect about it. So I really think that her, I think we can all agree that every generation there's strong mediums. But why is it that we remember Estelle Roberts? Why is it that she is included in what I feel is a pioneer in mediumship? She's in a good group of other pioneers. I think it's because of how she performed her work for spirit. She served spirit the way that it should be. She did it with a lot of humility, and she didn't really gain anything from it. If you look at a lot of her pictures, she was actually pretty malnutritioned.
It does look slim, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that was up Britain in the 60s, though, was it? When was she around? Was it?
Well, funny enough, she was born in May, and she died in May, and her real name is May. So I wonder if there's some kind of, there's a trifecta there with May. I mean, she was born in 1889.
1889.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she lived for about 80 or so years. She died in 1970. But
as Brian mentions that he was inspired by her in the 1960s.
They met each other.
Yeah, they did. Wow.
Yeah, she told him that he was going to be doing this work. I mean, that's great to have someone like Estelle Roberts reach out to you and to tell you that you're going to be doing that kind of work. So,
yeah,
so I think that's why we remember her legacy, that I believe that's what her legacy is. Yes, she was a strong medium, but it's the way, it's her character, right? It's how she went about her work. And I think a lot of people today, such as you guys and other spiritualists, strive for that same kind of effort, same kind of work. It's the humility of it all.
Yeah, she's probably of an era that didn't charge much for the work she was doing, just expenses to get by, because it was difficult to travel as well in that period, wasn't it? And she lived through 2 world wars by the sound of it as well. That must have been difficult.
Right.
We had rationing in Britain until well into the 1950s. So do you talk much about her actual life in the book? There's a little section at the front, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was important to speak, just put in a few pages about her work, just because there are individuals that may not have read much about her. So I wanted to provide a little background, a brief background on her mediumship. And if you wanted to then go further, then I would suggest you read 40 Years of Medium.
Right.
Which really deep dives into her life story.
It's a biography of her, is it?
Yeah, and there's another one called 50 Years of Medium, which is published later on. It has an additional chapter at the end, but if you can try to find 40 Years of Medium, that's I would read that book. It has more pictures in it.
You mentioned other pioneers, and who did you have in mind? For people right at the beginning of spiritualism, or the ones who put it into the media?
That era, that period. Alec Harris, you two know Alec Harris's story quite well. You just recently posted your interview with Chris regarding Alex's mediumship, and I believe tomorrow is Bradley's anniversary
of the funeral.
Yeah. So Alec Harris's it was actually Lou Harris's story on Alec Harris that got me into somewhat of an unknown medium, Dennis Bradley.
Right.
And because she spoke about seeing a book called Towards the Stars, and obviously when I read that part, I had to find the book myself too. So it kind of brought me into the life story of Dennis Bradley, who, for those that may not know, was a very skeptical individual, and he even called himself pretty cynical in the world of mediumship, and he ended up becoming a physical medium himself.
Wow.
So that's pretty funny. And so yeah, with Alec Harris's, I mean, you can't really, challenge his mediumship. It was just, I think he was one of the strongest materialization physical mediums out there. It was I think 15, 20 or 30 full materializations that he was able to perform on a single seance. I'm not really sure of any other physical mediums that was able to accomplish that.
No.
And it was unfortunately that one incident where he got hurt that I think affected his mediumship further down the road. So Alec Harris.
Sorry, I was going to say a lot of these pioneers seem to have Native American guides, don't they? There's Grace Cook with White Eagle. There's Alec Harris with the names for their guides, but several Native American entities, humans, spirit people.
Right.
Silver Birch presented himself as a Native American, and so does Red Cloud. So the book is primarily about Red Cloud's teachings through Estelle Roberts. So who was the spirit person in Red Cloud?
So Red Cloud explains himself in the book that he came down because of the vibration at the time in the 30s. It was appropriate for him to present himself as a Native American Indian. And and you're right. There's so many mediums that have Native American Indians, and I think that's because they lived a spiritual life. They walked the earth. They lived amongst the earth, And I think they had true psychic powers, and that's why they were able to work with us as spirit guides.
Yeah.
So Alec Harris is one of them. I would probably also mention Leslie Flint as one of the pioneers. I mean, everyone knows Leslie Flint, one of the most tested mediums of all time. And my friend Brian Hurst was also a friend of Leslie's, so there's a little continuity there. And as you mentioned earlier, he wrote the foreword for my book. And I can't speak about Leslie without a little bit about Mickey, his spirit control. You know, the little 10, 11-year-old kid, but he, you know, he might have had a short life here on Earth, but he spent 50, 60, 70 years on the other side helping so many other people. So his work should not be forgotten either. You know, another, you know, Harry Edwards, great healer, Gordon Higginson. So I think Estelle Roberts is really in a good mix of pioneers.
Yeah. How long did it take you to put this book together then? Because where does the material come from? And then how did you get that material into this book?
Right, good question. So the book has a little over 226,000 words. I typed every single word out myself.
Wow.
And I was careful to try to keep the essence of how the original materials were presented. I would say it took a few years in the making. I was provided the materials a few years ago, and over the course of the last 2 years, I started to piece together the materials. But it wasn't really until this year that I felt the urgency to just kind of put the pedal to the metal and just get it done.
Yeah. And you had lockdown then to help keep you in play.
I had to, because the information was so important, and you know, I really wanted everyone to be able to read what was given to us so long ago. I have with me here, I can show you an example. So this is the cover of one of the
original documents.
Yeah. So you can kind of see how it was presented.
Yeah.
And here's just kind of another without the cover. So
wow. So that's totally not suitable for getting it printed. So you had to digitalize all the wording in those pamphlets. And where did they come from then?
Brian Hurst was a caretaker all these years.
So they're original recordings, type notes.
Yeah.
What, from a tape recording or shorthand?
It was never really fully explained how they were able to record the trance sittings. I would assume that they were probably some kind of recording. Yeah,
not always. Silver Birch, a lot of Silver Birch's material was shorthand, recorded in notebooks. So somebody has taken the effort originally to produce those typed manuscripts. And there's a lot of them. How many of them are there then?
A lot.
A lot. What are we talking, 200, 20?
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds. Hundreds. I mean, it's I'm actually in discussion with Paul and AFC and to donate all the materials to them.
All gaunt at Stansted.
Yeah, I believe they belong to the museum. It was my job to get them digitized.
Yep.
A lot of the words are starting to peel off. As you can tell, it's, you know, the paperwork, so it's yellowing, it's aging.
Yeah.
So that was the urgency. I really needed to get it out, and now that it's out, it'll forever, because it's digitized, it will forever be made available in some format.
Some form, yeah. So, what time span do those documents cover then? Do you think dated?
Yeah, 3 years.
3 years.
They had a trance every month. 1933 to 1936.
Wow.
So, and there's a little, here's a little tidbit. Not all of the chapters were titled.
Right.
So there's a number of chapters that I titled myself based
Oh, good.
on the subject.
Yep.
So a little Easter egg for anyone that wants to try to figure out which ones I
Well,
I came
no
up
doubt
with.
you were inspired.
Yeah.
How did you get hold of those manuscripts then? Your friend Brian Hurst wrote the foreword. He had some of them. Did he? Did he have all of them?
He had all of them.
All of them. Where did he get
Yeah.
them from then?
Well, his mentor. Here, let me get the book here. You know, here's the book. And let me see here. Copley. Copley was his mentor, and he was a physical medium.
Wow.
And even though Brian doesn't speak about his mediumship very often, he was also a physical medium, but he didn't develop. He decided not to develop it, and just chose to do mental mediumship. So you know, it passed down from medium to medium. So
talking of medium to medium, you've got to be, as a sensitive soul musician, we can see in the background. You've got to be mediumistic yourself. I mean, if you've got a brain, you're psychic, can't you? So, or not a brain, if you've got a mind, you're psychic. We all like to think we've got a mind. So it's a case of developing sensitivities, or having been around this movement for quite a while now. Did you get any encounters with Estelle or Red Cloud or any other spirit person to help you in this process?
I don't know if I personally really felt too much of the presence of Red Cloud or Estelle. I know that with Brian being a medium, he felt the impression onto him. He told me that he felt spirit to provide the materials to me, and that I would know what to do with them. And I'm not bold enough to say that I really knew what I was going to do with them. I just knew right off the bat that they needed to be preserved and digitized. So I did that. And really the way I see it is, at this point, at this juncture, it's for everyone else, and everyone else can run with it and do what you wish with it. So preservation was the key to it. I did get a lot of individuals messaging me, and I had a healer email me. He was ecstatic, and he was just so happy because he started to read the book, and he felt Estelle come to him. And she was telling him that he needed to continue with his healing, and that she would help him. So that's kind of the beauty of having mediums read the book written about a medium, that you're so sensitive that you start to pull in and draw in, whether it's Red Cloud or Estelle.
Yeah. Has Red Cloud been back through anybody else that you know of since Estelle?
I'm not aware of Red Cloud. I know that I don't want to say, I think he mentioned that Estelle would be the only person that he would work with. I know Silver Birch has kind of made that same kind of statement, but at the same time, we all have free will as well, and you can, spirit guides can choose to work with any medium they wish to. So, but I'm not personally aware of him working with anyone right now at the moment, but he very well could be.
Yeah, is he like Silver Birch, who said that he'd stepped down the energy? So there's a very high spirit intelligence, and then there's a Native American who is closer to the earth plane, if you like.
Yes.
And he's the one that is perceived, and he's the one who took the more direct control over Maurice Barbanel. So that's why the picture is of a Native American, but that's not the originating intelligence. The originating intelligence is much higher again than the presentation. Is that the case with Red Cloud?
Yeah, it is. And if you notice throughout the book, there's times when Red Cloud is speaking to the group, and then he starts to drift away, and he starts to get more inspired, and starts to speak at a higher level, and then he'll actually come back and then apologize. He'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry, my children. I kind of got a little bit lost there," because they do come from a higher realm, and then they have to lower themselves closer to our vibration, the astral realm, and everything. So, yeah.
Do they talk about the process of stepping down the energy like that in any of the discourses?
He spoke about how he had to prepare to come work with Estelle. I think it was 1907 he started to prepare. It took 7 years, and then the war broke out. So it took a little time afterwards for the war to clear out. But he took 7 years to learn the English language. And he mentioned a process, because if you are at a higher level, there's actually a process where you actually work with other spirit entities through each level, and they kind of it's almost like connecting the dots.
Yeah.
And then each of them brings in their own power, so that you can channel through that and then come down to our earth plane.
Yeah. So he's a mouthpiece then for a wide band of spirit intelligences. So what exactly are they conveying throughout the 3 years of seances where Estelle was in trance? What is the teaching, the fundamental teaching that they give?
He speaks of Jesus a lot in throughout the context, but he speaks of Jesus more as the man.
Yeah.
That's why he refers to him as the Nazarene, the man of Galilee. And when Jesus walked the earth and spoke more purely about, a lot of times people say that spiritualism was really what Jesus spoke about, without all of today's religious dogmas and creeds.
Yeah.
And it's more pure. So if you really take away a lot of the teachings today, you can almost look at this book as the Bible of spiritualism. And he gives a lot of credit, obviously, to Jesus and his teachings. He explains a lot of the parables of what Jesus tried to convey to everyone at that time. One of my favorites, really, that I like to talk about is in my Father's house are many mansions.
Yeah.
And what that, according to Red Cloud, really means is the state of consciousness that each individual is at the time. And that's why we're here on this earth plane, to work on ourselves. You don't have to die, you don't have to transition in order to raise your state of consciousness, to understand the reality of how our two worlds work, and how things are governed, the laws. So in my Father's house there's a many mansions. So if you take a room full of people, in that room everyone is in a different state of consciousness, and we don't become all knowing and angels when we transition. I think we know that we're really the same people, and you can continue to work on yourself on the other side, and they continue to learn, but you can do that now.
Yeah.
Because the state of consciousness is irrelevant. It has nothing to do with you being in your physical body.
Yeah. And they probably mentioned original teachings of the Nazarene, cause and effect, and what you sow is what you reap.
Yeah.
And things like that.
He talks about that, the law of cause and effect.
Yeah.
Jacob's ladder is just continuing your education and your understanding.
Right.
As you understand more, that's how you get closer to heaven, kingdom of heaven, or if you want to say kingdom of God. It's really all about learning.
Does he have a theme that runs right through the book from beginning, middle, and end, or does he have sections one at a time, standalone?
I would probably say the only standalone sections were really in the beginning with Atlantis. And then pretty much throughout the rest of the book, it's just the laws and Jesus's teachings.
Right.
But he does it in a way without getting religious.
Yeah.
You can speak about the truth and the inner workings of vibrations, the astral realms, the many different spheres. You can talk all about that without getting religious.
Yep. Does he bring any new information about the Nazarene into the public domain that we haven't heard before?
No, I don't really believe there was really anything profound. other than just confirming a lot of some of the acts that were written in the Bible, his crucifixion, speaking about the cross, Judas. Judas was a man that he did what he had to do. He was an expression. All of the disciples were expressions of God, and they all had they all served a purpose. Judas was a confused man. He thought he was doing the right thing by allowing certain individuals access to Jesus, and then only to find out they had ulterior motives. He thought that Jesus could just snap his finger and get away from danger if he needed to, but Jesus didn't do that. So
if you were non-religious, you'll get quite a lot out of the book by being guided through the main teachings of the fundamental teachings of a religion, which is probably common to all religions if it comes from spirit.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to love.
Yeah.
Red Cloud speaks about that all the time. For upon love hangs the whole law of the universe and its prophets. That's the core of pretty much almost all teachings, and that's the truth. So if you can get to that unconditional love, that's where God is.
Yeah. So if you were a committed Christian with an open mind, what would you get out of the book then as well?
I would definitely get more confirmation that what you are reading is pretty accurate from the Bible that you've been reading. But however, you can also take away from it that to me, anything that resonates with you is what you take, and what doesn't resonate with you, you take away. So when you are reading texts that don't feel right, that are teaching about fear, you can almost attribute that to possibly man's teachings, because teachings from spirit is always with love and affection.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you very much for joining us for this chat then, Brandon. So do you have any other messages you'd like to give regarding the book?
I would only ask us, since we were on the topic of love, I would just say that for anyone who has the book in their hands, and I would ask that they sit down and give their blessings and thanks to Estelle Roberts, to Red Cloud, to all her team, her circle members. All of them have put in a lot of time and efforts to sit, to develop, and to get these teachings to us today. As Red Cloud spoke about law of cause and effect, we are part of that law of cause and effect. The teachings were brought down to us almost 100 years ago. And the effect is now the manifestation of the words into a book. So we are holding it. We are holding that law in our hands. So I just ask that everyone just say their prayers to them, give their blessings and their thanks.
This is the first time this work has been published in any kind of printed form. Then, is it?
Correct.
Wow. So where can you buy it?
Amazon.
Amazon is the usual, yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the medium discourse. It's there on the top.
Yeah, I haven't spoken too much about the medium discourse. It's basically a platform that I'm working on. I'm crystallizing it as we speak, but it's really an ode to all mediums, to all truth seekers. It's a platform that's going to help provide information on what it is that the subject matter that we're all taking part in. And it's not easy being a medium, being a seeker. It's a lot easier within our group, our circle, our community, but outside our front doors, it gets a little the waters get a little bit rough. So I hope with the medium discourse, I can kind of bridge that gap and provide a bit more of a smoother landing for everyone down the road.
Where do we find the medium discourse? Is that an internet?
Right now, it's just it's a Facebook page, but I will be putting up a website shortly.
Right. So the Facebook page is called The Medium Discourse, no doubt.
Yep.
Excellent. We should get a few people joining. I'm sure everybody's going to be that very interested. Because it's not just this work about Red Cloud and Estelle that you get yourself involved with, is it? You know, the Medium Discourse. I've heard podcasts.
Yeah, correct. I started the Medium Discourse a few years ago with materials from Leslie Flint. And I'm currently working with the medium today, Mark Bedwood, and I continue to seek and work with other mediums as well. So it's really open to a lot of mediums out there who are genuinely working for the betterment of mankind and for everyone.
Wonderful. I think that's about it for now then. Thank you very much, Brandon. That
Thank you,
really
Paul.
was
Thank you, Margaret.
Very interesting. And I no doubt there'll be a lot of people who will listen to the talk that you've given and will have many questions. So they can probably reach you then via the Medium Discourse Facebook page.
Yeah, or just find me as Brandon.
I'll just find you as Brandon Kim. There's an initial there in the middle, isn't there? Yeah, Brandon J. Kim.
Yeah,
just in case there's more than one Brandon Kim on the Facebook community.
Exactly, just in case. And the J, I won't tell you what it is, but it's the same name as Arthur Finley.
All right. Jesus. Jose. Jesus.
Yeah, let's go with Jesus. All right. Thank you, Paul.
Very good. Thank you very much, Brandon.
All right. Have a good day. Thank you.